Okay, day 118, DynCorp. This is part two. In this series, we talk about this CIA contractor named DynCorp that manages all these rat lines. And the rat lines are sex trafficking, child trafficking, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, and organ trafficking, organ harvesting as well. Basically, they've done this all around the world in every country they're in, where they have police contracts. A lot of times they'll have medical contracts as well for the organ harvesting. But these soldiers, mercenaries, kind of move back and forth between U.S. law enforcement, especially state police and county sheriffs with DynCorp. And in previous episodes, I showed how this prosecuting software, Promise it was called, this is back about 20 years ago, was stolen by a guy named Bill Weld. He was the Libertarian vice presidential candidate this year. And that was basically an index of all the people, the criminals in all these people's countries. So as the CIA sold this software around the world, let's say Libya, the Libyan prosecutors would say, oh, he's a terrorist, Muslim Brotherhood, he's a terrorist. Well, the CIA was also able to see that. So instead of the CIA going and helping these countries arrest these people, the CIA was actually engaging them to do overthrows like they did in Libya, like they did in Syria, Kosovo, Bosnia, Afghanistan, all around the world. And after the control is taken of the country, those same mercenaries then run these rat lines. As a matter of fact, as soon as they take any territory, they start running these human trafficking rat lines. We've shown that. The other thing I've shown is these gangs that are recruited by the CIA through the Promise software and now Palantir software, which is just basically an object-oriented version of the Promise software. They're now being brought back into the United States through these DynCorp sheriffs to run rat lines. I talked about the Hmong Chinese in Vietnam now being brought into the United States to grow marijuana and do other rat lines and so forth. But what is required is basically a enforcement layer that used to be ATF, and then CIA was able to infiltrate the FBI through the counterterrorism division. But you have an enforcement layer at this level, and then you have your gangs running your rat lines. So that if you're ever caught, you can basically dispose of these gang members wherever they are. And this is what we've got in the United States. So ATF ran motorcycle gangs in the U.S. That was the enforcement layer. And then you've got, basically, they use this Promise software, which is sold on a county basis in the U.S., as well as city police forces as well. So I know who the bad guys are in the United States as well. And so instead of rounding them up, I can bring them in as well, like La Raza and so forth. I can bring in people from the Mexican rat lines and bring them into the U.S., which is what they've done since Fast and Furious. But I can also recruit criminals and criminal gangs where they already existed. So this has been a 20-year process of just basically organizing this crime. So this is just basically organized crime. And remember, Wall Street is running DynCorp. Wall Street is running the situation here. So they're not doing what's best in the interest of the U.S. They're doing what's best in the interest of Wall Street. And Wall Street has now found that this organ harvesting is even more valuable than the sex trafficking that they used to do and the vaccination and virus testing they used to do. So with that, this is where having spies inside the U.S. from these Muslim Brotherhood associations like this Awan brother. There was 3 brothers here. If you haven't heard the story that Bartiromo broke, that 3 of these brothers had access to all the House Congressional Intelligence Committees, basically, as well as Homeland Security. So this isn't just Foreign Affairs, Foreign Relations Committee. It's not just the House Intelligence Committee for overseas, but also access to the Homeland Security. So as long as you have that, you have this ability to collect these gangs and create these rat lines in the United States. Now, Trump got rid of 3 of them. They fired 3 of them. And now we'll see Trump wants to go after the leakers. This is important. I compare this to flying a jet. If you have a leak like this, flying a jet with a huge leak in your gas tank, you can't really do anything else or get anything of your agenda done if as soon as you say something, somebody's leaking it to the press. It happened with his Australia call. It happened with his China call. It happened with his call to Mexico. And then now with Michael Flynn with his call to Russia. So there's nothing that really can be done. Now, Tillerson did just clean out the State Department, what they call the 7th Floor Gang. That was mainly these guys were the excuse, but it was the seventh floor gang at the State Department that was really doing all the spying for Hillary and company. So that's a good. We'll have to keep on that to see how that develops. But as I said before, this program, this DynCorp program, for Europe was called Gladio, but for the U.S. it's called JTTF. It's basically federalizing the police force, so you can have Wall Street's kind of secret police basically control all the county and major city governments in the U.S. And they use entrapment. Here's Andrew McCabe, number 2 at the FBI. I've been involved with him for at least 7 years and looking at how he's done entrapments. I think the entrapments go much further back than that. And all the people that have come out of this program, Pug Winokur and so forth, it has nothing to do with law enforcement. It's all about maximizing return on investment. And they're using JTTF for asset seizure. So the asset seizure, you're going to see a lot of deaths from opioid poisoning and so forth. Anybody that teaches torture as a part of their curriculum and human trafficking as part of their curriculum is all about asset forfeiture. That's it for right now.